The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a 1974 horror slasher film directed by Tobe Hooper. It was an early work from him and is, in my opinion, the Blair Witch Project of the 1970s, due to the fact that it proves that sometimes the more low-budget horror films can be more effective. It was number 4 on my list of scariest films of all time, and now I'm finally reviewing it. So, let's get started. The plot of this film revolves around a group of teens taking a road trip through the rural, quiet towns of Texas. When suddenly they pick up a hitchhiker requesting to be taken to a butcher his family owned. However, once he takes out his pocket knife, it all goes downhill from there, and then on begins the most terrifying cat-and-mouse game in independent film history. The way this plot plays out is really unnerving because pretty much everything that could go wrong on a road trip happens to these teenagers in the most grisly way possible. Their car breaks down, they end up at a creepy abandoned house that one of them grew up in, where they meet the man with the skinned mask himself, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This plot is pretty straightforward, but that is really what gives it an eerie feel. It's very haunting to watch these teens get offed one by one because it's presented in a somewhat tragic way, in an extremely dark way too. I give plot an A+. Next is acting. The acting in this film is fantastic. Marilyn Burns' portrayal of someone at the mercy of a cannibalistic family is so good that it actually was the one thing that haunted me the most after I watched the movie. I just can't imagine the horror that went through the character's head, and the screams Marilyn Burns let out were very hard to listen to. And the family members were so sadistic that they would actually laugh at her cries of distress, and that helped to bring out a very disturbing side to them. I give acting an A+. Finally, directing. Like I said, this film is just more proof that sometimes it isn't always about budget. Sometimes it's about telling a story. And I believe having a limited budget encourages people to be more creative. To give an example of what I mean, Hooper meant for this film to be rated PG, so he tried his best not to rely on fake blood, but the suggestions the murders conveyed were just as, if not more, frightening, due to the fact that the implications just resonated with people a lot more. And just because you don't see them getting killed doesn't mean you hear them being murdered, and holy shit is gruesome to listen to sometimes. It really conveys the feeling of being a prey animal, and the fact that it was out in the middle of nowhere, and pretty much anyone within a mile radius cannot be trusted. I could go on forever on how terrifying this film is, and the way it is directed, it really conveys the feeling of powerlessness and vulnerability. I give directing an A+. Overall, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a film that I think a lot of independent filmmakers can learn something from. Hooper had a limited budget and yet still gave us a very haunting tale because of it. It still creeps me the hell out, and I give it an A+. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and sub for more content.